Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Neremik, and you've probably heard this coming in a few videos, but it's another game review just before the year ends, I reckon. And yeah, this time we're talking about Blob. It's a game series I've not really touched for like 8 years or so. I played it for a little bit after the second game came out, and it kind of dropped off my radar. And it was kind of only recently it came back into like my, view of vision, if you want to call it that, through like YouTube recommending me the music. Now, as part of a college assignment where we had to make databases, I made mine about games and what I'd rate them, and I gave Blob a series overall a 5 out of 10. A lot of the ideas for the reviews that you'll be seeing on this channel have actually came from that exact assignment. Well, as I said, I got into the music, and then I decided to give the games a go through the re-releases on PC, and I realised that really, that score was pretty unfair, and we're going to get straight into it, because given this review is being written about 24 hours before it needs to go up on YouTube, this section is going to be really brief, but yes, Blob does have a story. So, in the first game, and second game to some extent, Chroma City gets invaded by the Inks Corporation, run by someone called Comrade Black. They trap all of the citizens in suits, renaming them to Gradients, suck up all the core in the area, and dump ink anywhere and everywhere they can. Now, in both games, your job as Blob is to repaint the white landscapes of Chroma and Prisma City respectively, kill the troops of the Inks Corporation, free the citizens, and eventually take down Comrade Black. And while the first game keeps the plot relatively simple, telling much of the story through these short, nice little pre-level cutscenes and the occasional dialogue in the levels, Blob 2 has a much more interesting story that involves elections, mutant Inkies, and a giant hypno in the sky that's told in much the same way, just better. You won't necessarily be here for the story, it's not that deep, but one thing I will admit is there's a lot of funny lines and gags to be had here. Whether that be in the news bulletins in the second game, or simple comedy in the cutscenes, there's some laughs to be had here. I will say though, the opening to the last level of Blob 2 is really hype. No spoilers, because you should definitely play the games yourself, but if you've played the games you'll definitely know what I'm talking about. Okay, so you might not be here for the story, but you're definitely here for the audio side of things. Every time you paint a building in these games, depending on what colour Blob is, a brief little stem of the full song will play. Depending on the colour, you get a different instrument. And the more you paint, the more quote-unquote full the background music gets, ending in some of the most energetic and best music to come out of video games, full stop. Now, chances are you'll be hearing a little melody I threw together for the sake of the video in the background, which hopefully by now should just show how varied the soundtrack is too. You've got stuff like Cool on the Dance Floor or Chilled, which are extremely energetic, upbeat tracks to get you pumped every time you listen to them. You have Blissful, which is nice and mellow and for some reason samples what I swear is monkey noises. And then you've got Revolutionary, which sounds like it came straight out of Mexico. Not a single track is necessarily bad here, you'll like more than others, and I'd say that even if this video doesn't want you to go out and play the games yourself, you should at least give the OST a listen on YouTube, because there's bound to be at least one track you like there. For a game about making the levels look nice and vibrant, Blob is, as you'd expect, really visually appealing. Now, while Blob 1 can have levels look a little bit samey and a bit dated, for the most part each level has its own identity, which is helped by both games' use of landmarks. Buildings which will require a larger than normal amount of paint points or a little 2D side-scrolling section before they revert back to normal. There's also little subtle flares included in both games too. Styles are collectibles in the levels which make the buildings you paint in that level display a little series of patterns, and they make them much more vibrant and unique from one another. Before each level there are these nice little comic strips either related to the story or the mechanics of said level, and of course I can't not comment on how nice the cutscenes look all these years later, especially in the second game. Now, given the first game was made specifically for the Wii, it leads to some of the textures not exactly looking the best by today's standard, but since the second game had to come out for the Xbox 360 and PS3 as well, the quality of the second game is much higher across the board. Though, do be warned, there are a few pop-in issues that were present in the original releases that do carry over to the re-releases, but they're nothing too extreme. Now by this point, you probably understand what the core of the game is. You've got to paint some buildings. And you're not wrong. Either by jumping in paint pools or onto paint bots around the level, Blob can earn paint points which can be used to either paint and renovate buildings or kill the enemies. You can make some paint bots to gain access to different colours too, and every time you complete a full block of buildings, the gradients inside are let out so that Blob can free them. It's not just that though. There's also a lot more content to help complement that core gameplay loop, and it makes it a lot more enjoyable. In both games, either through scripted events or by accumulating enough points, transform engines will spawn. These helpful little guys, when hit, will renovate one of the previously mentioned landmarks or bring a little bit extra life to an area of the level as well. They're positioned in places where when you hit them it really feels like a reward for getting that far into the level, and they definitely help with a sense of accomplishment. There's also power-ups in both games which help Blob achieve his goal. There are paint tankers and rainbow power-ups which give Blob an unlimited amount of core energy and will make him either cycle through every colour he can be, or in missions where you need to paint buildings a specific colour, will make sure he paints them in the desired colour. There's Charge, Wrecking Ball, Black Hole and Shield power-ups with all of their own uses too, and of course as I mentioned before, there's a wide variety of enemies Blob can defeat in his journey as well. There's Inkies you need to be a specific colour to smash, Inkies where you have to charge to defeat them, tanks, turrets, and in both games there's a small amount of bosses which you can only defeat through the power of colour. In addition to this, there's also challenges, co-op, and a decent amount of optional challenges in both games as well. While they're nothing substantial, they do offer a little bit more content if you finish the main campaign and want to get your fix of these games for just a little longer. The challenges are also locked behind level performance, which encourage you to replay the ones you didn't do as well through on your first time through. There's a lot more going on here than you'd first expect, and most of it is good, but my god these levels are long. Like, yeesh, have you seen these runtimes? There's the argument to be made that I am simply bad at the game, and yeah, I agree, look at this clown. But that's not the only problem. First of all, the re-release on PC has its fair share of issues which you'll need to fix if you want to have a fun time. Secondly, the Blob 2 is far too easy. In the first game when you were ranked, you'd slowly lose paint points until you eventually died and lost a life. In the second game, you have unlimited lives and just respawn at the last checkpoint if you die. And when you're ranked, you only lose points when you're actively standing in ink. Yeah, the first game, Blob likes to also get stuck on the edge of buildings far too easily, and the level's objectives are far too quick and easy to complete, to the point where by the time you're about halfway through the level, I've got enough points to leave. Now that wouldn't be a problem, but there's these decently long cutscenes for any time one of these goals are met, which is really annoying. You want to know what else is annoying though? Imagine this, you spent 50 minutes making the level look the best it can be to listen to that sweet, sweet music, but it keeps skipping down to the weaker versions at random because it just doesn't want to get good. Yeah, this mainly happens on the Inktron Collider level in the second game, but occasionally the level just can't decide what level the music should be at, so 1 second you'll be jamming and next it'll come to a screeching halt. Now, this doesn't happen too much, but when it does it's annoying. Now, for a game that I'll be rating as highly as the Blob, there honestly isn't much to say about it in a review sense. It's definitely a game which relies on its gameplay to make you want to play it, rather than the story, which I think really helps it keep a small but dedicated fanbase all these years later. Now, it does have its flaws, notable ones, but pair that with a soundtrack full of bangers, a strangely addicting gameplay loop, and some really smart but minimal story spliced in between the levels, and what you get is an absolute gem of a game that, at its core, is just dumb fun. Give the game a go, it's not an alarming amount of consoles for a game that goes under the radar for so many people. I'll rate them separately. The first game is about a 7, and the second is an 8.5. Props to Bluetongue for making such a good game. The third game might not happen, but I'd be down, and there's surprisingly not much else to say. So with that said, thanks for watching, feel free to watch my playthrough of both games here on the channel if you can't find your own copy, and peace out. And that's it, thanks for making it this far. At the end of all my reviews I do a nice little kind of just chill out unscripted section. And yeah, thanks for watching if you've made it this far. If you've kind of enjoyed how I review things, there is a review playlist which should be going up on the end screen. And yeah, I've reviewed a bunch of games. If you kind of like my personality, I'm a little bit more energetic in the main videos. But yeah, I do play games on this channel predominantly. Reviews aren't the main focus. So if you fancy watching me play the Blob 2 because, like I said, you don't have your own copy, or maybe you just can't be bothered to go play it, yeah, I have those videos. There's a wide variety of games I play over here, so, you know, feel free to check it out. I will say though, one thing that I failed to mention, I tried to fit it in the review script as hard as I could when I was writing. But I have a friend who has admitted they watch my Blob videos while they're meant to be working at the 7-Eleven and gym they work at. So hey, shout out to you, Nate, if you are watching this review while you're working. And yeah, there's honestly not much else to say. I just want to thank you for all the support this year. It's probably going to be a more detailed video thanking you for all the support that's came this year. Sorry today wasn't a double upload. I know I'm behind with the Christmas content. I did try and squeeze 2 things in, but making this in pretty much a day was pretty difficult. Though again, I did procrastinate slightly. I mean, yeah, I think I gave the games a decent score. Again, you can argue whether, you know, they deserve higher or lower in the comments, I'm sure. And yeah, it's, pretty much that's all I have to say, really, for this one. There's no kind of like, this was a massive thing to work on. It's impressive how short the time this being wrote took. I think it took about 30 hours collectively to get this, like, all done and ready to be exported, so you can do with that info as you will. And definitely the shortest review I've ever written. And yeah, that's really all I have to say on the matter. Thanks for watching if you made it this far especially. You know, leave a like, comment, subscribe down there. But yeah, once again, I hope you enjoyed, and with all that said, and all that aside, thanks for watching. My name's been Neremik, and peace out.